Question number one. Making sales seems to be more of a difficult process with COVID. I empathize with what everyone is going through, and I'm having a hard time closing on my price point when we get talking and either charge less or don't close at all. How can I deal with this? Leslie R.
All right, Leslie, good question. And so repeat the
Right?
question one more
We're
time.
getting started. We're getting
Repeat
started.
the question
Okay.
one more time. I want to make sure everyone also understands the question. It's actually a really good question.
Yeah, I'll ask again. No worries. Making sales seems to be more of a difficult process with COVID. I empathize with what everyone is going through, and I'm having a hard time closing on my price point when we get talking, and I either charge less or I don't close at all. How can I deal with this? That's from Leslie.
Yeah, so my initial response is don't get your emotions involved in sales. Okay. Yeah, like sales is not about you getting emotionally involved with your prospect, right? That's an unprofessional thing to do. First of all, second of all, it doesn't make anything better for either one of you. So I know a part of your content is saying like, oh well, if what does that sound? Is that you, Jay? Is that your background? Just mute yourself. This is what it feels to do
My
a show,
family
right?
embarrassing me. My dad is attempting to take a shower, I guess. But
Okay,
you know, this is the work from home experience. Let me mute myself.
Yeah, mute yourself. You're not talking. Don't worry, I got a train that crosses by my condo, so I'm muting myself during that time too. Okay, so I understand a part of our conscious as humans. We're like, man, we want to help others, right? But see, there's a problem. There's a misdiagnosis of a belief here, which is, Leslie, you probably think that charging more makes you a bad person. And then you're adding on top of that the stacking of like, well, everyone's going through bad times right now, which again, if we look very closely, is not true, right? A lot of people are doing a lot better because of COVID, because they've got more focus. They lost something and gained something better, right? They learn to value their time more. There's a lot of good things happening. So what we're really doing is this is just a mismanagement of our own emotions. Okay. So I'm going to talk, there's no real, like I can give you tactics on how to handle a sales call with a COVID objection, but a COVID objection is no different than any other objection. Okay. Like someone gets on like, oh, COVID's happening. I lost my job. I lost this, whatever it is, right? Depending on your offer, I guess this depends, it changes, but that's no different than someone getting on and saying, I just went through a divorce or I just lost my house. It's not COVID. COVID doesn't create, like a lot of people in sales or in business are going to think COVID is a very special situation. A pandemic is very special. Yeah, just because this happened for the first time ever, it doesn't mean it makes it any different than a normal objection. So how do you handle any objection, right? We have to understand what an objection is. An objection is a sign of uncertainty. So when you're offering something to somebody and they come up with an objection, there's two types, right? There's the fake objection, there's a real objection. A fake objection is like something that's universally said, like I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have the know-how, I don't have something. These are fake objections because it's a filler for what they actually feel. It doesn't mean they're lying, but this is where the concept buyers are liars come from. Because they either don't know how to get to the source of their actual uncertainty, or they are, but they don't want to tell you because they're afraid. So just be honest about what they're really uncertain about. Okay, like they just might not trust you, and you don't even know it, but they'll tell you, well, I'm going to think about it. So these are what we call surface level objections. We call them fake objections, right? Because they're not real. And a good salesperson or a good business person will listen to that and go, okay, so there's something underneath this I have to figure out. Now, a real objection is when something is like, it's a buying question, right? Like they go like, well, I'm getting paid next week. Can I start then? See, that's not saying I don't want to do this. They're just saying circumstantially, I can't start right now. I can start then. And so in that case, it's not an objection. More so, it's just you figure it out with them. Does that make sense? So all forms of objections are usually around some form of uncertainty, like the fake ones, which is the ones you got to get through. So there's three things that can be uncertain about. First is about you, right? It's like maybe they're just concerned about you. They don't trust you. That's a whole nother thing. You have to create rapport with them in that sense. They don't know you. The other one is they might not be you. They just might not trust your product. Like what they're paying for, if it's going to work out, they might not know. And so they're gonna stall because they don't want to make a decision because they don't know if what they're about to pay for is going to be worth it, right? And the other one is not trusting themselves, and this is a newer one, right? Because in the world we're in today, a lot of people have created inferiority complexes. Inside of their mind, they're insecure. And they don't know how to handle it. They don't even know it's an insecurity. And so what happens is they start doubting themselves. It's not even about you. It's not about the program. It's about them. So they go, yeah, this all works, but I've failed 3 times in the past. What if I fail again? And so this is where you get into coach phase, essentially, because on a call, you want to help them see why it's going to be okay. Why if they do this, they can figure out this time and settle that uncertainty they have. So my ultimate answer to this question is that, first of all, COVID is not a special case objection. It's just another objection. It's another reason to be uncertain about doing something. And you charging money during a pandemic or charging less or more doesn't mean anything about your integrity or morality, or has nothing to do with ethics. So the misconception is like, you might think, oh, if I charge less, I'm a good person. No, that has nothing to do with how good of a person you are. And so not only do they have less commitment, because they've now also been taught, based off how you handle this, that, they have some right of having it easier because something bad is happening. Well, then what are you going to say to the person who just got out of a divorce or run into a car accident? You go, Armin, that's a little cold. It's not. It's your perception is off. You're not hurting a person just because you're charging money for something that's going to change their life. You're hurting them if you let them think that because they've gone through something wrong, so things should be easier for them. No. Problems are opportunities to learn and grow. And so you have to leverage the fact that they're in a bad place as more of a motivation to why they should do this then. So when someone gets on a call, I'm like, obviously we get on a lot of strategy sessions in my business. Now my team takes care of them, but even when I took them or I follow up with someone to save the sale, I always get on and everybody has some form of the same story. Oh, all this shit has happened to me. I'm in a very bad place and all I can do is this, right? It's almost like the same exact thing every time. This stuff happened to me. So everyone has their own version of this bad thing happened to me recently. Okay. I'm struggling and this is all I can do. And I go, yeah, well, let me ask you a question. And for me, it's obviously a business offer, right? Like my program is about building your business and making money. So it's different if you're doing something that's more personal based, like personal coaching, or it's not about making money. It's arguably easier for you because money is a very cheap thing people want to make, but confidence or marriage being saved or spiritual connection, those are way more priceless than making money. So it should be easier for you to do it. But I always ask this question. I'm like, well, isn't that why we're here in the first place? Because you want to fix this? Like, how does me giving you a discount or letting you start for $1 today? Because most people are like, oh, can I pay $50 and start? I'm like, no. Because what you're teaching yourself is flawed. It's wrong. It's not going to serve you in life. To think that just because you're struggling, life should become easier. No, you have to become better. Ooh. And then now it's turning into a coaching call, a therapy call. It's not a sales call anymore because now they're being challenged. And that's what a good coach does. Be like, look, I'm not going to make this easier for you. I've already made it easier by making a program like this for you to be able to take. But you got to understand, you got to step up now more than ever. See, most people, 8 out of 10 times, and I've done enough sales calls to know this now, 8 out of 10 times people actually have the money sitting somewhere, but they're just so afraid to let it go. They're just so afraid to give it to you. And so they're going to come up with all types of objections and reasons to why you should do something for them as a favor. But it's like, you got to ask yourself as a person, when we talk about morality, it's like, what is good for the person overall? Looking back and saying, I got a handout or I got help. Like I got that little, like I got a discount because I displayed my suffering to somebody and that's what they learned. Or looking back and going, man, I was scared shitless, but I ended up jumping into this thing anyways and it worked out. Which lesson serves the person better, the prospect? So it's completely a lie if you tell yourself that because you charge your full price or whatever it is, or even a high price, is a bad thing to the person. That's your insecurity coming into the sale. Has nothing to do with the prospect. Because if you genuinely believe in what you do and you know it's going to help them, you're going to help them and you're not going to hesitate, which is very, very important to understand. So my philosophical answer is, this is not a real objection and you can't get your emotions involved because you feel bad. Just because someone is having a bad time doesn't mean you got to take that and go, oh my God, I feel bad too. You don't do that. That's the point. You have to not be affected by their situation. That's what makes you a good coach and a good salesperson. You don't get affected. You don't get emotional about it. And the second, my tactical answer to this is you handle it just like any other objection, which is great. Well, that's why we got to do this more. And you can't ask for things to become easier. You got to become better. Oh, I'm doing my best though, Armin. I'm being better. I'm like, great. So let's do this. Because the only reason why they wouldn't is just fear. But isn't that why they're there in the first place is what you got to ask them. Don't you want to get rid of the fear? Or do you want to stay with the fear by letting me succumb to where you're at? Why don't you level up and come to where I'm at? So it's really about that. Those are really my two best versions of an answer to that. So